Dragon Ball Super's animation has a pretty bad reputation, and it's totally deserved. This show started out in the worst way possible. It used the first 27 or so episodes to just give us a much worse version of the two movies that had just recently come out, and rushed those episodes out the door so prematurely that images like this are what people tend to think of when you say the words Dragon Ball Super and animation. But despite its rocky start, I'd argue that Super has gone on to deliver some of the absolute best animation the entire Dragon Ball franchise has ever had to offer, raising the bar for any future projects and, dare I say, redefining what good Dragon Ball can look like. And it first jumped out at me when Super gave us something that Dragon Ball Z never did, a fight between Goku and Android 17. The characters look pretty normal by Super's standards, but when the fighting starts, the animators are willing to let them go off-model, contorting bodies, squashing and stretching their forms to heighten the impact of blows, with sudden camera movements on top of that to just reaffirm how hard Goku and 17 are hitting each other. The character models are simplified and a little more cartoony, but it's granting them a much more fluid range of motion to match the fact that this fight is also faster paced than anything we're used to seeing from Dragon Ball. They're using speed and movement, both of the characters and the camera, to emphasize power. But forget saying gods and androids, the color palette is always the most powerful thing in the shot. The setting sun defines everything about this scene, allowing for an utterly beautiful battlefield and breathtaking moments like the silhouettes of Goku and 17 clashing right in front of the sun, or just above the surface of the water. Hell, the very act of Goku going Super Saiyan Blue looks amazing, due entirely to the color contrast with the sky and the way the camera zooms in. No fight in this franchise has ever looked like this, and even if this was my only example, I'd still say that Super had raised the bar for how to animate a Dragon Ball fight scene. But it doesn't stop there. Vegeta and Jiren's fight is much closer to what you'd expect from Dragon Ball. Their character models stay much more consistent, but their movements and facial expressions are still permitted to exaggerate beyond what's normal for the same reason as the Goku 17 fight. And still present is the very active camera, moving all over the place with each blow. Fights like this really lean on perspective shots to sell you on both the distance traveled and the force being used to cross them. And the ki blasts, every time one is fired, it feels like a violent eruption of pure destructive force, literally just pulsing with explosive fury. Gone are the flat, straight lines of light we're more used to. Now, every single one of them looks like the incredible force they're meant to be. But even when they start throwing around energy blasts, it never becomes a mess of beams and explosions and computer effects, because the physicality of the fights never stops so characters can shoot at each other. Everyone is constantly moving and attacking and counterattacking, and we get to see every second of it in its fantastic, violent glory. When Goku finally lets loose on Jiren, it's one of the most visceral moments in all of Dragon Ball, and that's because of the way everything on screen is working together to sell the impact of what's happening. And my god, the lighting! Have I mentioned the lighting? Even when characters are just sitting around reacting, it looks phenomenal. There's so much going on here, with the rich color palette and the intense shadowing giving a depth to the image that we don't normally get to see. These characters are typically presented in a way that's more uniform and flat, even when there's a light source casting shadows on them. The lighting is dynamic, and it's bringing depth to the image that isn't usually there. There's so much emotion on display here because of the way the shadows highlight their exaggerated features. I'm just as happy looking at these reaction shots as I am the actual fight that they're reacting to. The animation quality and art direction are so strong, they can breathe new life into things we've come to see as mundane. Hell, look at this after-image technique and how it benefits from employing all of the concepts we've been talking about. The blur effects running horizontal across the screen as the character models fade in and out, their motion emphasized by the slow pan of the camera as we circle around the dynamically lit form of Frieza's weirdly proportioned alien body. We've seen characters use this technique 1,000 times, and it has never looked even half as good as this. Dragon Ball Super has been wildly inconsistent from beginning to end in terms of its animation quality. But at this point, the good far outweighs the bad. The show started out looking terrible, and has gone on to be one of the best looking Dragon Ball things ever made. Where we've ended up by no means excuses the incredibly poor quality of those early episodes, and I will personally never forgive them for double dipping on those movies. But to me, the legacy of Dragon Ball Super will be the heights it reached in building a better fight scene. I'll remember the look of joy on Vegeta's face when he thought he won. I'll remember the look on Goku's when he'd finally had enough. I'll remember that warm orange sky. I'll remember this show starting out weak and then transforming into something far more powerful than it's ever been. Thank you guys for indulging me while I geek out a little bit over just how awesome I think this show turned out. I've got a playlist of random Dragon Ball videos I've made in case you want more of that, and yeah, just tell me in the comments, what do you think of Dragon Ball Super, and what do you want to see from the series going forward? Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you again soon.